Super Time Arrest is a fast-paced time attack shooter focused around getting the highest ranks by completing levels at high speeds and with accuracy. The basic goal is simple: to get to the end as fast as possible, killing as many enemies as possible. The more enemies killed and the faster you go, the better your rank at the end. The player has access to two weapons: the gun, used at range and only holds a small amount of ammo, and the sword, which is used for close range and when the player is low on ammo. Here's everything to note about the first prototype of the game. The gun has 3 bullets. The gun kills enemies with a single bullet. The player can regain all 3 of their bullets by walking over an ammo box, however they cannot hold more than 3 bullets. Killing an enemy with a gunshot will drop a sword. Swords have a limited amount of time to be used when first picked up, and picking up a second sword will refill the timer. When the timer runs out, the sword is broken and the player has access to their gun again. The sword kills enemies in 2 hits. Enemies killed with the sword do not drop another sword. The player dies when they touch an enemy. Observations. The sword felt extremely weak. It felt like rushing was punished, and the best way to play was to be extremely defensive. The sword's timer made it a very annoying weapon to use, especially since it took 2 hits to kill an enemy. You can hit an enemy once, and the sword breaks before you have the chance to attack again. The gun felt inaccurate at times. This wasn't exactly the case, but going fast made it extremely difficult to aim. Ammo boxes felt like things the player needed to go out of their way to collect. The player would spend all of their bullets, then backtrack to get more ammo instead of moving forward. Death came swift and out of nowhere, when contesting between gun and sword usage. Overall though, killing enemies and moving around was very fun, but the core of the game was lacking. In Iteration 2, I decided to change the game wildly in order to see if some major changes would affect the game for the better. The only things that stayed the same about the second iteration were: the player still has 3 bullets and could not exceed that number, the gun still kills enemies in a single shot, and the player still dies in a single hit. What was changed, however: the player can now swap between a gun and a sword at any time without having to pick a sword up. Enemies no longer drop swords on gun kills, but now drop ammo boxes upon sword kills. Ammo boxes now only give a single bullet rather than refilling the gun's entire magazine. The sword can now kill enemies in a single shot, and enemy hitboxes became larger. Observations. Now that all the players' attacks kill enemies in a single hit, the player is encouraged to keep moving forward and going on the offensive, rather than poke and retreat. With the enemies' hitboxes increased, enemies are much easier to hit at all ranges, giving the player a sense of empowerment as they charge through the enemies. Enemies aren't any less of a threat, however. Careful new placement of enemies keeps the game difficult and the player on their toes. Now that enemies drop ammo on sword deaths, the player is encouraged to get up close and personal with enemies in order to regain their ammo and keep moving forward instead of backtracking, as the player can reliably gain more ammo by being aggressive instead of backing away. This still keeps the dynamic of the player needing to conserve resources as in the original design of the game, but allows the player to be much more aggressive, which was the original intent of the gameplay. Overall, this iteration was much more fun to play, and is much closer to the original vision of the game.